Welcome to Hold This Hell with Lonnie and Cappel. We got a good show for y'all today. Lonnie, what's going on, man?
What up, bro? Not too much, just living another day.
Same here, living that quarantine life. How's it going with quarantine in Louisiana, man? I mean, it's crazy in Texas. I mean, I don't know if you've been following the news, but we've been breaking records with Corona, and I'm smiling, but that ain't a good thing because the mayor didn't like lock down the city, he didn't close bars. It's kind of getting back to that original lockdown quarantine like it was when we first started.
Yeah, we hadn't quite got there yet, but I'm thinking it's coming. Everything, all our numbers have spiked too here, pretty significantly. So I think they're gonna backdoor and go back to phase one. I think everything's gonna shut down again. I mean, I think it's the right thing to do, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I hate that we had to go back to this, but you got a bunch of people that's just not doing what they were supposed to do, wearing their mask and being protective and not going out in these large crowds. People started to think we back to normal, and a virus don't like people. It's funny. People they get tired of having to do something that's inconvenient to them, but like a virus don't have no feelings. A virus is gonna do what a virus is supposed to do,
Right,
and
right.
it's crazy that people just took this for granted, listening to fake news president talking about it as a hoax and it's not that serious. And he actually made the comment, um, "Well, we doing too many tests. If we weren't doing so many tests, we wouldn't have so many cases." What?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, enough about that. Let's jump into this sports stuff, man. Let's jump into this sports stuff, man. So, the NBA season is right around the corner, and one of the real issues is NBA players actually deciding to play. Now, the NBA commissioner Adam Silver has made it known that if you choose not to play due to COVID, that is no problem. They're not going to hold you accountable to that. Um, as far as penalties and stuff, they have penalties for people who sit out and don't play, but they're not going to hold you to that. You can opt out. The majority of players don't want to opt out, but then there's another reason that players are not wanting to play, and you probably heard in the news. It originated with the story of Kyrie Irving, that because of what's going on in society, because of the Black Lives Matter movement, that many NBA players feel that they would take away from the movement and they will be a distraction as basketball resumes. And they don't want that. But then you have other players who feel like, no, no, that's not, we don't believe that's going to happen if we use our platform for good and we play, we get back to playing, we can support our economy as well as protect our league and use our platform to push the movement further. So I want to know your thoughts on that because I have like some real strong opinions on that. So what's up, man? What's up?
My first thought on it is I've just kind of looked at the statistics, and as far as the coronavirus goes, I mean, they reported earlier this week you got 302 players in that bubble right now. 16 of them tested positive. I think the odds are pretty low. I mean, that's probably what, less than 5%. Well, it is less than 5% of people. I mean, so when I really think about that, I mean, as far as the NBA having it under control, as far as how they're testing, doing the testing and everything, I think they've been really doing a good job at it. And I don't think it's really going to be an issue for the NBA players as far as the coronavirus and coming back, just the way they've done it. And like I said, it's only 300 people, so it's a little bit easier to control, not including, staff and referees and all that, but still in all. Now, to the flip side of that, to the Black Lives Matters part, I completely disagree. I don't think by not being on TV and not being able to put yourself out there helps the cause. I mean, to be honest with you, if you really think about it, and it could just be my opinion, but it's kind of seemed like it's dying down already. What better way than to kind of bring it back out there than to get the NBA season started and have the guys out there, wearing certain clothes, wearing certain shirts, Black Lives Matters. I mean, coming out making statements and stuff like that. I think it'll actually help and bring more light to it because, in my opinion, it's kind of dying down already. And I think that'll help bring some more light to it. I just disagree completely with NBA players saying that I want to take a stand and not play the NBA season to help this. I mean, to me, that makes no sense.
See, I disagree, but the answer is not no, they shouldn't play. I disagree with both sides. I disagree with yes, they should play, and I disagree with no, they shouldn't play. And you probably wonder like how you disagree. How you gonna have an argument where you disagree with both sides? It's because you need both people to play and not play. As simple as that. And if you look at the rationale for why people don't want to play, the people who don't want to play, in their hearts they feel like our platform is not going to be strong. We're going to be a distraction. We are not going to be able to continue the movement because people that are focused on what's going on right now, they're going to start focusing on sports, going to start focusing on basketball. I don't want that. So if they play against something that they truly believe, then for them, their platform probably won't be as strong because in their mind, they already are saying to themselves, this is not what we should be doing. This is not what I should be doing. But then you got the people who want to play, and the reason why they want to play, they have their reasons, but they feel like they can use that platform to show that to further the movement. So when they because they believe that and because they want to make sure that it continues so people don't scrutinize them, they're going to use that platform. So for them, they're going to make sure that they say something. They're going to make sure that they push the agenda. And so you need both sides to do what it is that they feel. And I liken it to Martin Luther King movement, Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. You know, people always want to choose one side when it comes to like something that should be united. You can be united and do it differently, but still have the same purpose. Martin
Right.
Luther King was about love and about peace and about driving away hate with love and not violence. And Malcolm X was like, hey, by any means necessary, we're not going to take this. They had the same goal in mind. They just went about doing it different. And I feel like because there were two sides to it, that's what pushed the Civil Rights Movement Act. Martin Luther King gets more praise for it, and he's more talked about in history and stuff like that because of his approach. Because people always want to say no violence, but the truth is people are violent. The average person is
Yes.
going to hit you back if you hit them. It takes a strong person to preach no violence and to believe it and to not do it. But so when you gather in groups of people, you want to get things done in a positive manner. So of course you're going to go no violence. But with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, their approach, it combined. Even though they didn't sit together at a table and say, "Hey, I'm gonna do it this way, you do it this way. We're gonna meet and it's gonna all come together full circle." No, but that's what happened, and that's what people need to realize is that you can have a group of people who believe to getting it done this way, and a group of people who believe in getting it done this way, and they don't have to be at odds with each other. You're gonna laugh at this. Look at X-Men. Magneto and Professor X, it's the same dynamic. One felt like, hey, we need to be as peaceful as possible, and then one was like, no, we fighting. But they were best friends, and they had the
Good
same thing.
analogy.
And when it came full circle, they was on the same side. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same thing, man. So like I know that's probably not fair for a debate, but that's the truth about how I look at it. I feel like Kyrie, you wasn't playing no way, so you need to shut up. But but if you was gonna play, if you could play, sit down if you don't want to play. Dwight Howard, sit down if you want to play. Avery Bradley, sit down if you don't want to play. All the other players that want to play, they're gonna play, and their heart gonna be in it to use their platform as much as possible.
Well, just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about the two different approaches. Last time I checked, either approach usually gets the same backlash. Whether you approach peacefully, you approach violently, they still got a problem with it, regardless of the way you do it. Colin Kaepernick, a la, you know. So I mean, when it comes down to it, the approaches, and this is my thing about the NBA. Like Dwight Howard coming out and saying it, you know, Kyrie, like you say, shut up, you're not even playing. But my thing is, y'all are talking, nobody's came out and said. Now we're gonna talk about Avery Bradley, but Avery Bradley didn't say he was sitting because of the movement. He was more about the COVID and not wanting to play and about his family, which just so you know, Avery Bradley, I want to put this out there. I hope you don't get a ring if we win. I just want to put that out there. But back to the whole topic is, like you say, the different approaches. Malcolm X, different approach, still got killed for it. Martin Luther King, peaceful approach, still got killed for it. So when it comes down to it, I mean, like I say, there's different ways to approach everything, but usually, regardless of the fact, if they don't want you speaking on it or anything, it don't matter how you approach it.
You're right. And I mean, so I feel so I feel like, hey, you make your decision. If you want to play, you play. If you don't, you don't. The overwhelming majority of players are going to play. They can pull from the G League to fill rosters, and I know those G League players. They're going to play. You know what I'm saying? If they get the opportunity to move up to a roster and be in that spotlight, they're going to play. That's like a one in a lifetime opportunity, and they again can use whatever platform they have to push the agenda further. So when you talk about millions of dollars, that's hard to walk away from, man. It's hard to walk away from, and you can always it's easy to do all or nothing. Like that's one of the easiest things to do. Say you go all in, or you say I'm not going to touch it at all. It's hard to balance. It's hard to
Yeah,
balance. It's hard to do something. It's hard to do multiple things at once and be successful at it, because that's just how it requires planning, it requires purpose, and it requires discipline. Something a lot of people don't have. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, as far as the season starting, I'm ready for it. Um, like I said, the majority of players they're gonna be ready to go, and those players that choose not to go, to go back to Avery Bradley, I agree with you 100%, 100%. And I'd even throw this out there. I mean, it's probably not fair for me to say what I'm about to say, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it is what it is. I feel like I don't want to take nothing away from him as a man, and right now probably pretty much like putting the fact out there that putting out there that he may be lying, but I feel like his decision was driven more by the protest than COVID, and he used COVID as a cover to really not play instead of saying I'm not playing due to the protest. I really believe that. I'm just gonna be honest. I believe that's what it was, because he never made, at least publicly, what was put in the news. It was never anything he said about being concerned about COVID. Nothing at all. He was very vocal about not going back to play because of the Black Lives Matter movement, and his final decision, as reported, is well, he don't want to play. He opting out due to COVID. Come on, man. It is what it is. If that's why you don't want to play, that's fine. It just looked like you're using it as a cover. But like I said, I would love for him to say, "Hey, I'm not playing because this is what I believe," and stand on that. I feel people will respect him for that. Ain't nobody gonna look down on him for that if that's what he truly believes. But either way, he said what he said, and I'm speculating, but I really feel like if that's what he felt, that's what he should have said.
yeah.
So,
Look, I
nah,
agree
go
with that
ahead.
100%. Just to kind of chime in on that a little bit, I feel some type of way about it. You know how I am about the Lakers, so
Mm.
it's definitely bothering me. And my thing is, if you do feel that way, like I say, I'm with you 100%. Come out and say it. Because guess what? You ain't helping nobody by sitting out and not saying nothing about it or saying why you're doing it, except for COVID. I just find it odd that you weren't even one of the players that were diagnosed sick. You got guys coming out that have COVID. The 16 players that I was talking about saying, "Hey, I'm feeling good. As soon as I'm back right, I'll be back with my team,
Yep.
ready to go
Yep.
for this championship." You talking about, no, I'm not going to play. So I guess forget all your teammates and all that. Yeah, stay at home and make sure you stay at home when it's ring time too.
I hear you, bro. I hear you. I hear you. Is Vince Carter a Hall of Famer? Is Vince Carter a Hall of Famer? So this is the reason why this is a question is because Vince Carter, for those of y'all who don't know, has announced retirement. And after I think 20 seasons, he has a great career. Most NBA players fizzle out after 5 years. So he was definitely one of those players that was in it for the long run. He started off as a quote unquote superstar, and then he developed into a role player in the later half of his career. But the question is Vince Carter a Hall of Famer? And for me, the answer is an astounding hell no. He is not close to a Hall of Famer. I don't even know how this is a question. Like, people are talking about this, and I'm like, why? You know, they're talking about it. You know why? Because he was magnifying as an athlete. He was magnifying as a dunker. But Vince Carter never made an All NBA first team. Never.
Never.
He never made an All NBA defensive team. He was Rookie of the Year. He had one NBA second team, one NBA third team, and he made the All Stars 8 times. Those are not Hall of Fame numbers. Like, I'm coming for anybody who feels like they can convince me that Vince Carter is a Hall of Famer. It is hands down no. No, absolutely not. He is not a Hall of Famer.
All right. Well, the first thing I'm gonna say is, hey, give him a little bit. You cut him short 2 seasons. He played 22. Um, but I think that's the only reason people are even giving him. He's even in the discussion is because he played 22 years. I won't say at a high level the whole 22, but he was still able to produce even in his 22nd year, as we saw watching basketball this year. I'm gonna kind of play devil advocate here because I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't really think he's a Hall of Famer either, but I'm gonna give you some reasons why I think he should be. Um, I think he did have a big impact on the game. I think he was one of those few guys that came in that era of the Kobe Bryants and the Tracy McGrady's and the Kevin Garnett's and stuff like that. And if you think about it, he's the only one still going. I think he took care of his body well. I think he did have some real good years, like the year when he took the Magic to the finals with Dwight Howard. He was the leading scorer on that team and stuff like that. Do it make it a Hall of Famer? No. But I think he had some real good seasons with the Nets, with Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson. I think he had some real good years there. Just his impact, and like you say, the excitement he brought to the game in itself. I think he made, dunking the ball was always the big thing. That was always fun. Jordan made it, amazing. Dr. J and all that. But I think Vince Carter took it to another level. Sticking his arm down in the rim, stuff like that. I think he made an impact on the game and brought a level of excitement that I think hadn't been done in quite some time. Even like the Kobe Bryant, in the dunk contest when he played, man, he was nice, real nice. But Vince Carter took the dunk contest to another level. I just think he changed the excitement of actually watching the dunk contest. And for things like that, his longevity, the way he changed the game, the way he brought excitement to the game, and the way he went about playing the game, I think those are some of the things that do make him a Hall of Famer. I don't think it's always statistically required to do things to be made to go to the Hall of Fame. That's just kind of my take on it. I think he deserves. I go back and forth on it, man. It's hard.
I don't go back and forth on it. I hear your points, and to counter to those points, he played on 10 NBA teams, right? Like, like what Hall of Famer played on that many teams? Probably zero. I mean, I'm almost 100% sure that most NBA Hall of Famers, if they played on multiple teams, it was no more than about three. The only Hall of Famer that probably will be a top-notch Hall of Famer that played on more than three teams in their primes is LeBron James. Everybody else that played on other teams, it was toward the later end of their careers. When their contracts were over, they were older. They deserved a lot of money, but the teams didn't want to pay them. Like Scottie Pippen, for example. He went to Houston and Portland on the latter end of his career. So even by and his 22 years, yes, the longevity is great, but you have to play at a high level for the majority of that time. The last 8 or 9 years, he has not played at a high level. Last 8 or 9 years, he's been a role player, and many of those teams, he's come off the bench. So, his longevity is, like I said, is great for him as an individual person, but for me, it would only matter if, like, 18 of those 22 years, he was the man. And then the last 4 years, he started to fizzle off clearly because of age. When he left Toronto, he was not the same player. If he would have remained at that high level of a player, then he would definitely be in the conversation. People likened him at the time. They like people would talk about who's your favorite out of Vince Carter and Kobe. That's how good he was
Mm-hmm.
playing at that time.
Yeah.
But when he left Toronto, that disappeared. When he went to New Jersey, he had solid years, but he didn't have Toronto years. Toronto years were Hall of Fame years. He just didn't have enough of them. You know, and as far as like, his magnifying his the way he played the game, the way he dunked, and stuff like that. I mean, who else was magnifying? Sean Kipp was magnifying. You know what I'm saying? Sean Kipp was, he was doing it before Vince Carter. I mean, there's a lot of magnifying dunkers, like Zach LaVine. He's magnifying. Aaron Gordon, they're magnifying. They will not be Hall of Famers when they finish their careers. They won't. I mean, unless they make a drastic turn for the better of their careers. And I know I hear you, and I know you agree with me for the most part. And you would if you would have went first. you would have had your argument probably. No, he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, and you was playing devil advocate. But I don't know if there's an argument that could be made that could really support Vince Carter being in the Hall of Fame. That's just how I see it. That boy is not a Hall of Famer, man.
Well, bro, I am gonna throw one little thing out there. There is one player that bounced around in about 6 teams at the latter of his career. We don't think about it too much because it was kind of toward the end. But Shaq played on like 4 teams in 4 years. But don't get me wrong, I'm not comparing Vince Carter to
But
Shaq.
I was also about to say I said 10 teams though. That's still not
Yeah,
close. Like Shaq played for Orlando, he played for the Lakers, and that was most of his career. Then he went to Miami for a few years. Then he went to Cleveland. So
no, he
four.
played for Boston and the Phoenix Suns
Yeah.
too.
Boston the Phoenix. So okay, so yeah, so Shaq, you can throw him in there, but that was like that really highlights what I was talking about with Vince Carter. If he would have played like a good 18 years in the last 4 years, Shaq dominated his whole career in like the last 4 years, literally like the last 4 years. That's when he bounced around because he
Yeah,
played with Cleveland 1 year, played with Boston 1 year, played with Phoenix 1 year, and maybe was with Miami for like three at the most.
right,
You know what
right.
I'm saying? So I mean, I see your counter to that, and that's probably the closest person that you could bring. But again, that person, the most dominant center ever, dominant
Yeah.
in a physical sense. Vince
Let's
Carter
be
don't.
clear.
Vince Carter,
I
yeah,
am
I know,
not comparing Vince Carter to Shaquille O'Neal. Let's just be clear about
I
that.
I
I just
got
had
you,
to throw that out there, but no, absolutely not. But
I
I
got
just,
you.
man, I really do think Vince Carter made a big impact. And just to kind of chime in on what you were saying, like the Aaron Gordons, the guys like that, I think they Vince Carter is the guy who they looked up to. The Zach
I,
Levines. I think they looked up to him. I think he made a big impact on those younger guys coming out. Look how many people wanted to put their arm through a goal after he did it. I think he made a real big impact on a lot of the youngsters and wanting to play basketball and knowing you can be a high flyer. You don't necessarily have to be a shooter or great on defense. You can be a high flyer. There's not many high flyers, if you really think about it, that's what they were best at and actually lasted as long as Vince Carter did. He
and I
developed a shot. He developed a lot of stuff.
I'll agree with that 100%. Their games are even very similar to his. They're mid range shooters. They high flyers. They're slashers, and that's how his game is. Well, Zach Levine has really developed a three, so I got to give him a little bit more credit for his
Yeah.
jump shot, at least right now than Vince Carter, because that boy Zach Levine be firing that ball up. Now I will backtrack a little bit. Zach Levine, he's playing with Chicago. If he goes to a better team, or if he gets this leadership gene that just starts to like pop, and he starts to lead his team into the playoffs and stuff. The way he plays and how he puts up points, he could be a Hall of Fame candidate towards the end of his career if he has the longevity. Aaron Gordon will not be one.
I agree.
you know, um, the NBA regular season is about to continue. Like, we officially got word from the NBA earlier this week that they are starting on July the 30th, and they have the first two games: Jazz versus Pelicans, Lakers versus Clippers. First of all, I want to say I'm ecstatic. I am
Hallelujah.
ready. I am ready for some basketball. Um, this was great news when I heard it. And then when I saw the teams playing, I was like, Lakers, Clippers. I was like, they going full fledged right into it. They said, we gonna give you the best possible matchup. You've been missing basketball for 4 months. We're gonna let you have it. We're not gonna start off with no Brooklyn Nets and Washington Wizards or whoever else is available to play. Because as you know, every team is not going to be able to play. Um,
Right.
but but they are giving you some good stuff. And then I'm a Pelicans fan from Louisiana. I represent the whole team, and the Pelicans will be playing the Utah Jazz. So those are the first teams back. Let's talk basketball, bro. Let's talk basketball. Um, so before we get into that, I do want to explain to people how this is going to work. If you haven't been keeping up with sports, the way that this is going to work is all the teams that are going to play. I think it's a total of, correct me if I'm wrong, it's about 18 teams. It's between 16 and 18 teams, I think.
22.
It's 22. Okay, well, I was way off. Thank you. 22 teams. They decided to take the teams that were within a certain amount of games away from being in the playoffs, and that's how they chose them. If you were like they're gonna if you were like way out of the playoffs, you weren't a team that was put into this that wasn't eligible to play. And what they're gonna do is have like an 8 game season. So those 8 games, at the end of those 8 games, the top 8 teams will be the playoff seeds, and then we have a playoff as regular, as we would have, when the season normally ends in around April or May or whatever. So everybody that's playing are playoff eligible. They're close to making it. So it's going to be a real, real, real competitive 8 games before we get to the actual playoffs. They're going to be in Orlando, Florida. They're going to be in a bubble. The first, it's a kind of like a phase thing. The first phase is just going to be NBA players and the people that are working at the hotels and working at the games. They're going to be tested constantly. Um, they're gonna the families are not going to be able to come initially. After a few weeks, the players' families will be able to join them. The family will be tested rigorously. The players, like I said, will continuously be tested along with the coaches, personnel, and everybody that's involved in this process. And of course, if a player turns out to be positive, then that player will have to quarantine for the necessary amount of days. Other players will have to test immediately to see if they're, if they've tested positive. And so they have a good plan in place. What we're hoping and what they're hoping is that they can minimize the interactions with people who are not in the bubble. Honestly, I say minimize. They're trying to make sure they have nobody, that they interact with that's not in the bubble. Thing is it's very hard to stop a disease from spreading. So it's just one of those things where it's a small amount of players when you look at a league, and just hoping for the best. Now, with that out the way, let's talk basketball, bro.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my thing is, just to kind of, I just want to chime in on that a little bit. I think everything's going to be good because, like that, the bubble that you're talking about, I think they're actually putting the NBA players on like a big ranch. I don't know if it's necessarily a ranch, but like they got a big piece of property where basically all of them are going to be staying, if I read correctly or if I understand that correctly. Um, but just to go to the basketball part of it, bruh, I'm so excited. Lakers, Clippers. Man, I don't even know what to say about it. Utah and New Orleans, I think, will actually be the better game. I mean, as funny as that may sound, I know the Clippers and the Lakers, everybody's more excited about that. More of to me, a conference finals preview. But as far as the Utah Jazz and the Pelicans, that's kind of where I want to start off. Thinking about those two teams, I really think the Pelicans got a pretty good chance. I don't think people think the Pelicans, missing Zion Williamson just about majority of the year, and still being in playoff contention, I think is important. I think that's big. You get them back to full strength. I think this will be the first time, probably the first time, people not thinking about the fact that these guys have been able to rest up for 3 months. So you
Hmm.
got basically a New Orleans team that's going to be at full strength with Alonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, Josh Hart, JJ Redick. I mean, you got a lot of people on that team. And
Yeah,
as watching Utah earlier this year, they just didn't look like their chemistry was there.
yeah,
They just didn't look the same as they did in the last couple of years. And I don't know if it was injuries. I don't know if it was just, I know it had a few things to play, but Mike Conley's kind of been in and out of the lineup all year.
hmm,
Rudy Gobert's played pretty well, but Donovan Mitchell's been kind of inconsistent. Joe Ingles has been real inconsistent, which is a surprise. He's usually a pretty consistent player for them. You usually can rely on him pretty well. So I mean, just watching the matchup with that, I really think New Orleans got a good chance to be able to beat them, man, because I don't think Utah is as good as we think they are, and I think New Orleans is a lot better than we think.
yeah. I like the Pelicans. I love the Pelicans to win this first game back simply because they have a young team. They're gonna come out running. They're gonna come out pushing the ball, and because of their style of play, it's probably gonna lead to a victory this first game back because Utah is a slow team. They like to slow the pace down. They're a good defensive team. They work on chemistry. And with them being out for so long, their chemistry is going to take a few games to come back. So simply because of that, I choose the Pelicans. But I feel like in the long run, the Pelicans, they're not a better team than Utah right now. They will be in the future, I think, because they got some real good pieces. Utah is a seasoned team as far as the way that they play. They have that team mentality. They play defense. That's the most important thing. You know, their record, they won 41 games this year, and with the if the season would have continued, they would have got close to 50 or probably been at 50. You don't win 50 games without being a good team. The New Orleans Pelicans, while they've played well, and a lot of games they lost were close, but they don't play defense, and that's where they're gonna have to shore up on the defensive end. So they can't. The Pelicans, if it's a long shot to make the playoffs. They're like 4 games out from 8, and that's the only seed that they can actually get. If they make the playoffs, they play the Lakers in the first round. They're not going no farther than that. It'll just be a great story for them, a great opportunity for them to get back in, and for them to build on their future. But I'm with you on the analysis of the Pelicans winning this game back. I definitely think that they're gonna win this game against Utah. Rudy Gobert, hey man, it's gonna be hard for you coming back. A lot of people look at you, and I mean, it was it. It's crazy. It's crazy just to jump into that real quick. It's crazy that people were down on him, but the truth of the matter is, had he not been so nonchalant with his behavior and stuff, like when will we have had a shutdown? Because the NBA is what triggered everything in sports, which trickled down to the U.S. making the decisions they made. Even though the country should have been at the forefront of this and they should have been the initiators, but what he did is like triggered everything. So it's gonna be hard for him because people gonna probably say stuff to him, and they probably gonna talk shit to him, like on the court, because of what he did. But
Yeah, oh yeah.
he deserved everything that come his way because he was an asshole for that. Um, Lakers Clippers. Listen, this is
Yes,
not even a
sir.
fair analysis because you are a true Lakers fan, true to the heart Lakers fan. I'm a LeBron fan, and I'm one of those people that other people don't like. They call him what LeBron stands. I mean, that's ridiculous. I like LeBron. Everybody like players, and everybody they got a lot of people that root for players when they go to another team. They just root for that player, and of course, if you root for that player, you rooting for that team because that player is on that team. But
Right,
it's LeBron, and just like Dallas Cowboys got haters, LeBron got haters. Michael Jordan fans, they pretty much usually hate LeBron. Kobe fans usually pretty much hate on LeBron. And LeBron fans pretty much usually hate on those people too. I'm not like that. I like all those players. So LeBron just happened to be my favorite. But I'm Lakers all the way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm Lakers all the way.
of
You
course.
know, even in this game coming back, I feel like I feel like the Clippers have a much higher hill to climb because they were just starting to play together as a team simply because they've missed so many pieces throughout the year. And
Hmm.
um and the Lakers, just they were like really taking off. They were already really good all season, but you
Yeah,
could start to see how much better they were playing with each other. So I feel like they both are gonna have to play a few games to get back into the rhythm of like again that chemistry. But when it's all said and done, I feel like the Lakers are going to be more ready as a team to play than the Clippers are, and it's gonna come down to the last quarter like it always does, probably the last 5 minutes. But when it's all said and done, LeBron got a chip on his shoulder, man. LeBron has something to prove. He's not going to come out and talk about it. Um, because he really hasn't talked about it all year. So I'm not going to blame it on what's going on in society right now. But he's definitely not going to come out and talk about it right now because people are going to use that against him to make it seem like he's more interested and more focused on winning the championship that was going on in the world today, which that is not true. I don't believe that to be true. But if you're going to be playing a sport and you're competitive, you have to compartmentalize what's important in the moment. So it would be stupid to think that he's not focused on the championship. But yeah.
Hashtag Wash King. That's all I'm gonna say about that. No, he's focused, very focused. This is my thing with the Clippers. The Clippers hadn't had chemistry all year, and even when they did start to play together, they talked about themselves how they had to work on their chemistry. Well, I know something, and what you just said about the Lakers. Having to come back and maybe get that chemistry back. LeBron James is instant chemistry. They literally had chemistry since they stepped on the court from the beginning of this year. I mean, it's not like they had to learn how to play together. It was like they had been playing together for years when the season started. I mean, I think that's just a direct correlation with LeBron James. When you play with LeBron James, he's instant chemistry. He gets everybody involved, and then he can dominate himself. The other thing to that, you've let the Wash King sit up and rest for 3 months and just work out and build on his body and get into shape, relax a little bit, not shave his beard, not have to worry about his hair coming up, just chilling, just kind of throwing that out there. Sorry, Bron. But no, you got Anthony Davis. We all know Anthony Davis is known to be fragile. He's been dealing with back issues, shoulder issues, all that over all year, and he's played through it. Kudos to him. I was impressed to see that this year. But guess what? You just gave him 3 months to let all that heal up. So you got a fresh, healthy Anthony Davis and a fresh, healthy LeBron James, 2 of the top 5 players in the league, arguably 2 of the top 3, coming
Yep.
back full strength, rested, and everything, going to make a playoff run. That was the biggest thing that people were talking about when it came to the Lakers. Is AD gonna be healthy when the playoffs come? Is he gonna be ready? Is LeBron gonna run out of gas? Is he doing too much during the season? Well, all that's irrelevant now because you gave him 3 months to rest.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, the injuries are not going to be a problem unless, of course, somebody gets re-injured. But that is definitely a good point, and it definitely is in favor of the Lakers, and I'm all for it because, like again, I'm ready for LeBron to ascend to that top. A lot of people don't have him as the king, as a what the goat. He my goat, so this is just gonna help his case. Anyways, what's your fantasy, man? What's your fantasy? What's going on with golf?
Oh well, I'm gonna throw out a few picks. I got you got the Rocket Mortgage Classic coming up this week. And I'm gonna give you 3 picks. The 3 picks that I have, the first one I have is gonna be Nate Lashley. He actually won it last year. So definitely I'm going with him as a top pick to defend his championship. I think he'll be real motivated to do that. Another person that I have is Webb Simpson. He's a big name that's actually kind of headlining the tournament. So I think he'll be a good pick also. And my surprise pick for everybody is going to be Hideki Matsuyama. I think he can have a good tournament. I'm expecting those 3 guys to do well. So you definitely want to try to get those guys in your lineup if you're looking to play fantasy golf this coming week.
All right. So that's good analysis. What I want to throw in is a plug for daily fantasy on FanDuel. Me and Lonnie are both FanDuel players. We will give analysis mostly talking about FanDuel, but it can apply to DraftKings. But as you know, if you play daily fantasy, the prices differ from between players. On DraftKings and FanDuel, you may have a player that is moderately priced on FanDuel, and DraftKings he's like super high, and vice versa. So of course that does change how you put your lineups together. For those people that play daily fantasy and are serious about it, they understand our platforms. What I will say about daily fantasy is this: our info that we give, it's the real deal, fellas and ladies that are listening. It's the real deal. I'm an experienced player on FanDuel, not experienced from my perspective, experienced from FanDuel's perspective. They have ratings on FanDuel. I'm an experienced player, been playing FanDuel for years now. I'm not about to go into how much money I made because I don't want people calling me asking me for nothing. But yes, it has been lucrative for me. I've done very well. You can talk to Lonnie about that. He'll tell you. Yes, he's done very well, and Lonnie has done very
Yes,
well
yes.
also. So when we give you picks, especially when it comes to football and basketball and baseball, you need to take our advice serious. You know what I'm saying? Because the picks we giving you and the people that we play, they're definitely gonna be people that we have in our lineups. And when we hit big, if you listening, you may hit big too. So that analysis is gonna be coming very soon when FanDuel gets everything up and running and we get close to July 30th for football. Baseball, we're going to give analysis for that as well. Baseball is something we don't know exactly when it's coming, but it is coming as well, and we'll give analysis for that also. Now we only record right now once a week, so our analysis is going to be for when we record in the games that are like within range of our recording. Um, so hopefully we'll get to a point to where we can record on a more normal basis to give you some fantasy info. Maybe, and I'm saying this now that we're talking about it, maybe we can have like a quick 10-minute, 20-minute show several times during the week where we just go through our picks. That way you have, you maximize your opportunities to win some money and you can give us credit for it. What'd you think about that, bro?
I actually think that's a good idea. And just to chime in another thing, we might not always have all the answers that you're looking for right here on the show, but also make sure if you have some questions for us or you have different things, any advice you want us to give you, you can also go to our YouTube channel, which is Hold This L, and look up the actual show, and you can put questions in the links below, and we'll make sure we try to keep an eye and try to answer those questions for you and try to help you out the best way we can, give you good fantasy advice. So if you have those questions, you can always go to the links in YouTube, go to our page, subscribe, ask questions and stuff like that, and we'll also try to make sure we get back to you to make sure we help you out with that.
Yes, thank you for that. And our email address is holdthislpodcast@yahoo.com if you got questions. If you want us to talk about certain people or picks when it comes to fantasy or even certain topics, holdthislpodcast@yahoo.com. You'll be able to see that at the end of the video. And the last thing I want to say is please subscribe to our Yahoo channel. If you're listening to the podcast, follow us on Spotify, follow us on Apple. Follow us on whatever podcast you listen to so you get those updates and you know when we drop a recording. Before we get out of here, I want to give a shout out real quick, man. I read this story the other day. It's a softball league, USSSA Women's Softball League. They started, I think it was over the weekend, and it was a story in the news that they all quit their team. The reason why is because when they were standing for the pledge, their general manager took a picture and took it upon herself to tweet it, and she posted it at the real Donald Trump. All of our players are standing for the pledge and something else she said. And when they finished the game, they started receiving all these notifications and messages about this tweet, and that really upset them because they were not standing in support of you know they were not standing in support of Trump or standing in support of to say that they're not supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, and that bothered them. So they all of them went on Twitter and said this is not us, this is not this is not our we're not representing what she's representing, and they quit the team. They took a stand. Yeah,
Kudos to
kudos to
them.
them. And I also read that they formed their own team and they're
Wow.
going to play the rest of the season under their own team name. And so kudos to them. Shout out to those ladies, supporting the Black Lives Matter movement and not just doing it by words, but doing it by action.
That's major. That's
It is
major.
major. Anything you got before we leave?
Oh man, not too much. It was a great show. Well, again, I just want to make sure I throw it out there for everybody to make sure you go to YouTube, subscribe, like our page, and like I say, chime in. Any kind of questions you may have, anything you want. Hey, don't hesitate to ask us. We're available and ready to help.
All right. That concludes another episode of Hold This L. This is Cappel. That is
And this is
Lonnie.
Lonnie.
And we out.